Big Cats podcast. So this is podcast episode number 2, and we are doing it yet again on the book The Princess Saves Herself in this one by Amanda Lovelace. And basically our last podcast was more of an introduction to the story, and now as time goes on she's kind of uncovering more issues in her life as the plot goes more on and on. And yeah.
So in this book, The Princess Saves Herself in this one, the book is divided into 4 sections or chapters, and they are, first one is called The Princess, second one is called The Damsel, third one is called The Queen, and the fourth one is called You. And section 1 is The Princess, and it's basically an intro on her life and how she is very insecure and her emotional stability is lacking because of her relationship with her mom, because her mom is an abusive alcoholic. And so part 2 is called The Damsel, and it goes more into depth about her relationship with her mom. And in this section, it unveils that her mom has cancer due to her addiction to cigarettes and alcohol, and she passes away because of cancer. And the protagonist, also known as the princess, is just absolutely broken, and she wishes that she had a better relationship with her mom. And she talks about how lonely she is at every single night. And there's a quote. So on page 68 through 69, there's a quote where the protagonist is saying how she's just so broken because her mom passed away and her sister actually committed suicide. But this section of the book is mostly about how she took her mother for granted and how she wishes there were just one more second that she could see with her mom. And she says, "Who will I be without her? How can I be without her?" And that just goes to show that you should never take anybody for granted, because in the beginning of the book, she was talking about how much she despised her mom and how she wished she had a different mom and how she feels like she was the daughter that she hated. And now she just is so lonely and broken. She doesn't know what to do with herself at night. So Kat, how do you think the protagonist's relationship between her and her mother progressed throughout the novel?
So in the beginning of the text, the protagonist and her mother had a very fragmented relationship, as her alcoholic, cigarette-smoking mother is a main factor of her daughter's emotional stability. And it just shows how it's deteriorating. So throughout the beginning of the text, the protagonist, or also known as the princess, explains how her mother constantly body-shamed her. This was a significant cause of why she's constantly checked the scale. She's always felt that she was never the daughter her mom wanted, and due to her weight and insecurities. As the story progresses, her mother is diagnosed with cancer due to her cigarette addiction and is later killed by this horrid disease. The protagonist is absolutely broken, as if her whole world is morphing into a dark hole of loneliness as she blisters. Who will I be without her? What can I be without her? This philosophy of never taking the people you care about for granted is portrayed through her reaction to her mother's death. Life is short, and no one ever knows when anything could be all, and they are left with the thoughts of, oh, I wish I did this, or I wish I said that. What particular event in the earlier parts of the story foreshadowed her mother's death for you?
There were many cited examples that foreshadowed her mother's death. Throughout the princess's hardships of life, her mother was seen in her eyes as particularly her worst enemy, to the point where if she were to pass, it wouldn't even faze her. The princess's bitter attitude toward her mother's hideous comments made the princess feel as if she were trapped, nowhere to escape, ruining the relationship forevermore. These main events seem to foreshadow her mother's death, considering that it's often that people take certain things for granted, such as the princess did with her mother. By taking her mother for granted, she never had the full moment to put aside her tough relationship, and slowly tried to become closer and work all their problems out. But it's too late, because her mother was diagnosed and unfortunately didn't beat the fight against cancer. Although there are distinct differences, the princess missed her mother dearly and yearned for that one chance just to do it all over again. What's your perspective on this? How does the topic of death foreshadow throughout the middle section of the story, that section being called The Damsel? What do you view?
Personally, death is foreshadowed throughout the middle section because following the death of the princess's mother and sister, the princess expounds how many funerals can someone attend before they turn 19. The Cursed Family, Lovelace 84. Death is portrayed throughout the novel as it follows the protagonist through many horrific episodes of her loved ones. This quote foreshadows the death because she explains how there is going to be more death to come throughout the text. Death becomes the only constant in her life, which is ironic because it is a topic that takes loved ones away from one another. Elise, how does the mother's death relate to life?
I think her mother's death relates to real life because the mother's death relates to real life as many people take parents, especially, for granted. Most people who do take their parents for granted and don't seek a relationship with them often regret this in their later years when they lose their parent. Regardless of the factors, the relationship with a parent or the relationship sought for will never be replaced or fulfilled again once lost, or if it was never there. All these particular emotions that have to do with the princess's mother's death can be found in real life with practically anybody in any situation given. So all these emotions like regret, guilt, sorrow, sadness, mourning, all of that can be found in real life situations every day. Some people are going through very rough hardships and they feel this every day, and that's how it relates to real life. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We're very excited to read the last 2 parts of this book. Kat and I have been thoroughly interested in this book thus far, and we're very excited to see what's to come.
Thank you.